All right, and we are live. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Thought I would sit down. This is super early. It's like 4 in the morning. I'm waking up on my first cup of coffee, but just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, looking sexy as hell as usual. And yeah, coffee chats tend to start slow. These ones super long. So I'm going to say to people chiming in after the fact, after it's no longer live, if you want to get into all the in-depth conversations, just scroll through. And if you'll see the questions and comments on the side, you'll see what we're talking about. If you want to chime in and see where we are with it at that point. So in the meantime, what I do to justify these really long coffee chats, I do a lot of other social media posts, and I talk to clients and typing while I do this. Because we have slow moments through here. We'll have 5 minute streaks sometimes where there's very little going on. Because I run these for hours while I wake up. I drink coffee, get my other social media work done, and just chat with my audience and my fans. But we get into some pretty crazy conversations sometimes. Yeah, I get some weird questions in the thing. As someone tells me they think that I'm flattening my feet because I don't wear shoes, that's a very strange idea. Um, People come up with some interesting stuff, don't they? Right, right. They come up with some interesting stuff. I'm gonna wait a bit to do a community tab. I'm just gonna let this flow. People said they've been getting the alert, so stuff is going to people's feeds. We know that is happening. We know this is happening for a fact now, so we just gotta run with it. All right. All right. There we go. What I'm going to do in the meantime, we're going to make some Facebook posts. And then I will hop back over to everybody. Oops. And nobody in here yet. Few viewers, no likes. As soon as you guys hit the like button, it starts hitting feeds. That also helps. And some of the Facebook pages did really good this week. The profile's been a little slower than I'd like, and I needed to pick up because it's got all those bonuses. All right. For those who are unaware, I do more Facebook than I do YouTube. I would be in Facebook too, except that I did too many lives or something, and it's blocked me from doing lives for just a bit. You know. So I can only do in here. Gig and Menta coach back at it again all the time, every morning. Gig. So every morning I do all my other social media posting while and all my little editing stuff while I'm in here chatting with you guys. And these have turned out to be pretty good. These get a lot of views. They get a lot of supers, sometimes. And it's just good for my traffic. But it lets me engage my audience. Plus, it's just been good for business to me to sit here and chat with everybody. I pick up client consultations, or we just have entertainment. There's days, man, where I don't make any money really. I don't pick up any clients. I don't get any sales in here, no donations, but we just have fun. So, at the end of the day, it all balances out. One way or another, something's getting done. But I can say these lives have been pretty good for just business overall. I think they're good for business. How you doing, Gigamet? How you doing, Gigamet? You doing okay? This is super early for people, so there's going to be no one in the U.S. It's going to be the first hour or two. If I'm up this early, because some days I'm not even in here for another hour and a half. It's going to be purely my European people. I left one of my lights on. I did not need to leave on. All right. We didn't need all of that. Mm. Oh, so much crazy stuff in the news. These are things that get brought up in all this too. Um, I knew a lot of this stuff was going to be an issue years ago. A lot of stuff that we talk about, though. Remember, I called out the whole Falon Fox thing a decade ago. It must have been 10, 11 years ago. Had a dude get in a ring and fight a woman and called it progress. Right? Progress and equal rights was putting a man inside of a fighting ring to beat the hell out of a woman while people cheered. Interesting. That was quite an ordeal. I gotta wonder on that though. Where are all the feminists when that happens? You know, where are they? I don't see. You didn't see the outrage. Like someone who was born a man goes through a transition, gets in a fighting ring, and breaks a woman's skull in a fighting ring while people cheered. Interesting. Where were they? Why were they not screaming about this? I don't know, Gig. What do you think? I'm gonna be right back. We're gonna be right back. Morning, coach. Just had to rearrange a meeting to join this live. I take my Kapow wielding power seriously. David, you don't got to do all that, man. Don't miss your meeting over it. You know, it's a little slow in here in the mornings. Like a lot of times the first hours of the coffee chat tends to be real slow, though. Okay, it tends to be very, very slow. You know, Connor, what's up, guys? We're getting some regulars in finally. Man, it's early in the morning. I'm actually getting a few people. We have like no likes though, guys. 3 people and only 1 like. Get some likes up. All right, let's get some conversations, man. We got some regulars. I've just been chilling. I'm doing my other social media work till we get some topics going. You know, I don't want to talk just to hear myself talk. Right? I threw that Jeff Nippard thing in the title, though. Forgot I did that. You guys want to cover that briefly? I'm going to mention that a lot because when we're talking about training volumes, what more is there to say? Nippard made gains on 6 sets a week on a cut. I mean, I haven't had time to watch it yet either. I've been too busy doing live streams and other work to actually take time to watch it. So it's interesting to see Jeff Nippard has made. I mean, but seriously, how do we respond to that compared to all this stuff that the whole fitness space in his circles put out about these 20, 30, 40 sets a week? You know? He did it while cutting, meaning no surplus necessary, no huge volumes necessary. What are we doing? All right, what are we doing? I never watched Jeffrey Nippard. He used to promote loads of high reps. He's obviously not natty, but then, well, he competes in drug tested stuff. But here's the other thing, David. He claims natty. It's done natural bodybuilding shows and stuff. But the thing is, no, he's an evidence-based guy. He actually has his degree in exercise science, puts out evidence-based stuff, gets in all these debates. But he bought into this whole high volume. He's put out programs that were 6-day-a-week push-pull legs. 20+ set a week program, stuff like that. He's put all this out and cites all the Schoenfeld data and all this other stuff. And yet he goes on a cut recently. Now, mind you, he's been training like 15, 16 years. Right? He's squatted like almost 500 pounds. He's a short, lighter guy. You know, he's benched 365. Right? You know, I always agree it wouldn't. It's horrible. Like, so I tell guys, they're like, but I want to do his 6-day push pull. It's like, whoa, there's no need for that. But then the thing is, chatting with Solomon and everything where they had their falling out, he went on a cut and did like 12 weeks in a small deficit of 6 sets of body part because he didn't want to waste recovery in the deficit. And he made gains. He made small amounts of gains. Think about the implications of that. Are we not understanding the broad-reaching implications? Essentially, his anecdote showed that 6 sets a week in an extremely advanced lifter, if they push really hard, can build muscle with no calorie surplus and in a small deficit. Do we understand the implications? Essentially, this means there's no reason for anyone to ever do high volumes. Because they're arguing, well, we can make a lot more gains, but can you really? Well, the implications are certain. We know that too. I think he was overtraining during his last bulk. Yeah. Of course he was. Using enough gear to bridge the gap. But I mean, think about, use me as an example. All right, use me as an example of my training over the last year or two. I feel like my legs and back have gotten bigger, doing very low volumes. My arms haven't made the best gains while doing really high volumes and lots of isolation work. And the only thing haters come back with me is, well, you don't train your arms that hard. I'm doing the sets to failure. Momentary muscle failure, I think, is training pretty hard. If you curl until you stick at the bottom and can't do another rep, I count that as a hard set. And the fact that they didn't get substantially stronger means I wasn't growing from it. Because people say, well, you have to add, but you can't add weight. You know, your 10 rep max is your 10 rep max. You can't just put 10 more pounds on the bar and do 10 reps. It doesn't work. You fail on rep 6. You fail on rep 5 when that happens. All right. Nippard did get injured back when he was deadlifting 5 days a week, so there's a proof in the pudding. Low volume suits him for sure. But I mean, again, even using me as the example, the muscle group that I pushed with the most volume, the most sets, the most reps, got the worst growth. Do we understand how low my leg volume is? And I think people need to think on that when there was like, well, your legs are massive. Do you know how little leg volume I do? Do you guys ever see me doing 20 sets for my quads or anything crazy like that? 10 to 12 is my upper limit. What do I do for my quads right now? I do 3 sets of squats a week. I'm not really sure what Nescafe is. I've been going back and forth between my Folgers and then my Pete's coffee. I bought a couple bags of the Pete's. I've had fans buy it. So if you check my Amazon wish list, my Pete's coffee and stuff is in there, Benny. It's up above, tagged above. People actually buy stuff on the wish list. I'm doing Folgers, but then I went ahead and I've got the second set of the pot going later. I threw some in there. I think you're a good example is you're just on a replacement dose of TRT, so your results are reliable evidence of what works, right? Because I'm in the high normal range. Like when I say TRT, I don't mean I'm at 400 nanograms. I mean, guys, I'm like 800 to 900. Let me just cut through the BS. Dude, I sit at like 800 to 900 nanograms per deciliter. I mean, we are in the normal range, but, high normal. But I'm also about to be 49. I can say 48 for a few more weeks. We have a few weeks left. Yeah. So again, think in terms of legs. I mean, you guys have seen me squat 500 pounds this year. What is my leg work? I do 3 sets of squats a week. I do sled. Most of my leg volume is just pushing my sled, doing sled sprints. But they're like 30, 40 seconds. So let's say I do 45 seconds of sled 3 times in a day. Are we counting that as a set? I'll count a sled push as 1 set for legs. So let's say I do that twice a week. That's 9 sets for my quads for the whole week. If I do 3 rounds of sled, I don't always do 3 rounds. So what are we looking at here? We're looking anywhere between 7 to 9 sets. Unless we want to, do we want to count deadlifts as a quad exercise? You know, yeah, here we are. After 8 plus, that's a lower body to failure. I'm ready to throw up to 20. Yeah. You know, right? You know, that's all that we need. And my arms were bigger when I did nothing but pull-ups and pressing. You know, versus all this tons and tons of isolation work. You know. That's also what's been interesting this week since I've done no curls and I've just done chins to failure, weighted chins to failure, pushing it. My biceps are actually sore. Right. Right. But yeah, when my arms have been biggest, I did the least direct arm work. So that's always been the funniest part. You know, people are like, well, Blaha's known for not having the best arms. But then they forget I run whole phases of time to where my arms get 3 times as much volume as the rest of my body. It's not like I don't train them. I think my arms overtrain. And I can look at my own historical trends. I literally grow slower if I do too much. I grow slower. During Yates did 2 to 3 sets a week of biceps to failure, and that was on heavy doses. The only problem we have with Dorian and stuff is we could always throw back the drugs. You know, well, what about the drugs? That's also used as a counter argument against his methods sometimes. But I do understand your point. Because we know the training still matters when you're on drugs, right? You know, even though we have those studies, here's the thing, you know, Connor, let's jump into that one. You know, we see these studies that do show this enormous muscle growth from non-lifters, right? Dudes who quit lifting. We see that in studies, but what do we see in the real world? And I like to cite those studies, but my own observations, man, I've seen dudes who don't train not get big on pretty large amounts of drugs. Case in point, I knew a dude who was blasting. Pretty hard, and he had a pair of 20-pound dumbbells at home. He did no lower body, and he basically just did arms. And he was on test trim, all sorts of stuff, right? It was one of my exes, one of her friends' boyfriends who lived with her. So it's like, boyfriend of one of the girls, and he was showing me all his drugs and stuff. And the dude was tiny, you know. He didn't have his new gains. So and he's like 12 weeks into a test and trend cycle. He was reasonably lean. He had the slightly mildly athletic build, the swimmer build. Maybe 5'8", maybe 155 pounds, 160, with outline of abs. He was like 12 weeks into a test and trend blast, and he was running like 800 milligrams a week total. So if we went off those studies, the dude should have gained 20 pounds of muscle. He didn't. David, I just do barbell curls 3 sets of 8 twice a week, and I'm happy enough with my results. But where you are, hey David, we got any pictures? I'm actually curious. Put some pictures or footage up later so we can see. Connor says, if I was a betting man, and I'd say the UK has at least 1 million steroid users, and maybe at least 900. Right. That's kind of my problem with the studies too, Connor. Connor, your background's in physiology, right? If I remember correct. I got to not get people confused. Right. We see those studies, and they look like well-done studies. But why don't we see it in the real world? When those guys do those studies on the 600 milligrams of test sip a week, they gained muscle faster than the guys lifting when they had them stop lifting. My online presence. Oh, that's fair, David. I was just curious. Because dudes will say that, and it's always like, we kind of want to see where they're at with it. But I mean, you might have really big arms. I've met some dudes who don't really do arm work, who have massive ass arms too. Right. So Connor, let's get a round table here real quick. What do you think of those studies? How do we reconcile that? How do we reconcile what we see in those studies versus what you and I see in the real world? Because there's a disconnect happening with this. There has to be. Why don't we see in the real world when dudes blast 600 plus milligram? And barely train, why don't we see that 20 pounds of muscle growth? Because all the dudes who train like bros and they get the results in the gear, they're at least in the gym. They're actually putting in work. They just may be doing silly stuff. Right? And they also deflate like crazy. Like when you can tell when dudes went off cycle, it's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. Hey, David, that's totally cool, man. I always like to try to get data points if possible, but absolutely, man. I can understand you want to keep your anonymity. Totally get it, dude. All good. All good, brother. These studies often have a lot of limitations. I'd say gear quality and diet's a factor. Maybe the study participants are fully untrained and they're being monitored 24/7. No, they're not being monitored. So, but that one study, that one big study that everyone cites. But again, as you know, physiology background, can we base our conclusions off of a single study? That landmark study done here in the US that we all cite, they took trained individuals who all had at least a year of lifting experience. I think it was that far back. It might have been, dude. That's a good question, Connor. I should dig further into that study. So I believe it was 96. Wow, is it that old? Oh my God, it is. It's a 96 study. Standardized protein. They all consumed 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. 100% of the daily allowance treatment of all vitamins and minerals. Training stimulus. They had the training group do concurrent training. Muscle size was measured with MRI. Okay. Analysis. Density, so by underwater weighing measurement, muscle strength, hormone measurements. I think something to think about. Yeah, single study. So I was scanned through it real quick. I read through the study. Okay. If you want to scan through it also, do you leave the coffee pot? Hey, beautiful. The coffee doesn't get burnt. You want me to buy a thermos for a non-existent problem? That seems rather silly. No offense intended. So I need to go buy a thermos when the coffee doesn't actually get burned. I'm thinking of going back to a French press. Connor, we'll go back to that. Let me answer these questions and we'll go back to something. Notice they didn't have a calorie surplus but gained like 20 pounds of muscle. Wonder what happened 8 weeks after the study was over. See, we're about to go with that MRI. I think we know what happened here. Harrison says, hey, coach, I'm an incel gym cell. How can I find a girlfriend? I keep working on the traps more to eat more calories. I'm currently drinking coffee. What do your traps have to do with it? Here's the other thing, Harrison. Have you noticed that gym cells are obsessed with traps? Does it work? I'm going to assume you made this as a troll account playing the textbook gym cell. Why are gym cells obsessed with traps? Like, why do they think that they're going to get girls because they build their traps? Yeah, but Alpha Destiny is an incel who's never seen a vagina. Unless he walked in the bathroom on his sister once by accident. Why would you take his advice on that? All right. But no, beautiful man. No, the coffee doesn't get burned at all. I'm good, man. I don't need a thermos. Why would you need a thermos inside your own house to drink coffee, man? Yeah, I use paper filters too, David, right now. Had a bit of a scan. I wonder how much of this really is just water. How much is purely muscle glycogen and storage factors? I mean, I think we have to factor that in with those studies. Can the MRI differentiate between water and muscle tissue? Again, you got a physiology background. Can an MRI even distinguish, especially in 1996 MRI? Can it differentiate between tissue, protein, and glycogen? Because 600 milligrams of testosterone with no estrogen control, they gained 15 more pounds in the control group on similar calorie and dietary approaches. You know what I mean, bro? How much water weight were they holding? Right? How much water weight were they holding? Hmm. Right. So Connor says limitations found: short duration 10 weeks, small sample size 43, only one dose used, dose response curve not measured, 600 milligrams only. And your point about the MRI is also valid. MRI can't distinguish between early intracellular muscular gain and myofibrillar muscle hypertrophy. Well, I think we had that other one where they did multiple doses too, though. So there's been another one. Let me see if we can find it. Okay, the 2001 by H.G. Pope, I believe, ran 20 weeks, 6 weeks. No. There was a 20-week one somewhere running multiple doses. Yeah, this one. Control crossover. He's 29. Reading all this data real quick. Sorry, this is a really long study. It's going to take me several minutes to read it. I'm not getting what I'm looking for. There we go. Still not what I'm looking for. Yeah. So I think a lot of what we're looking at with these studies, Connor, is really the inability to distinguish between intramuscular water and actual changes in tissue protein. Right. And I think that's a big part of the problem, Connor, with a lot of this data. You know, because again, in the real world, we just don't see this happen, right? It just does not pan out in reality because we've all seen it. We've all seen guys run doses at these study doses or higher who didn't really gain, right? Who didn't really train. And then we see the difference in dudes who really trained. You know? To explain why these very limited carry over to what we see in the real world, right? Yeah. But everyone always cites it though, you know, and we have these conversations. You know, when we're having these discussions of natty versus enhanced, these studies get referenced over and over and over. It would be deemed unethical to pump them full of trim for multiple cycles, right? Are protein farts real? I need you to specify what you mean by protein farts. Are you talking about from protein powders with either lower quality filtration and people with some mild lactose intolerance, or do you mean protein as a macronutrient can cause gas? I need you to be specific in your question. Harrison is there. You go. David's getting ready to vote on you, Harrison, as a macronutrient. No, Harrison. There's also varying genetic responses to then this is true also. No, Harrison, there's no reason to think that protein as a macronutrient itself contributes to flatulence. I think people who cite it may have Dunning-Kruger effect. True. Man, a lot of them have backgrounds in sports science, though. Right. Barring some type of gastrointestinal distress due to an enzyme problem of some type, or again, something that's causing water retention in the bowel, like sugar, alcohols, so on and so forth, Harrison, fiber is probably the only thing that's you're going to see a significant change. Again, barring some sort of reaction, right? Certain food allergies or various GI tract issues can cause gas. But as a macronutrient, protein itself probably has the least possibility of producing gas. Out of your major calorie sources, it has the lowest potential. This purely comes from protein shakes, from people with at least some mild lactose intolerance. All right, I'm gonna get some coffee. So Harrison, I don't understand what you're asking me. Are you having a problem with gas? Is this, or so where are we going with this? Are we asking hypotheticals, or are you having a flatulence issue that you personally need help with? All right. It never fails. It never fails. Connor, there it is. Every day someone has to ask me about Mike Minzer, who do not actually know anything about Mike Minzer. Connor said Harrison eggs have a lot of sulfur as well, so they can produce those stinky farts. So, like a better way to phrase it, right? True, but it's not protein causing it. Man, I kind of get tired of mentioning my speech about Minzer. I'm just going to give you the cliff notes. Mike Minzer's later work when he went insane has nothing to do with anything Mike Minzer did when he was a bodybuilder. You need to understand. Our Mike Minzer question is an automatic cabal vote. No, we're not, because people don't know any better. There's a whole little fad from TikTok with everyone discussing Minzer again. It's just that I'm tired of rediscussing the history over and over and over with people who are not well versed in training methodology history or the different people involved. Because I'm a bit of a historian on this stuff, I guess, at this point. No, nothing Minzer promoted later in life worked. He was a crazy drug addict. No, Chase, it's not that you're not supposed to. It's that people ask about Mike Minzer in live streams 7 days a week for the past 18 months. I don't get a single day where someone doesn't ask about Minzer. I've given you guys at least 20 times the entire history, including his drug addiction, his insanity. Mike went crazy later in life before he died. All this crazy stuff he promoted in the last few years of his life and published, none of it works. So you guys keep calling it Minzer training. No, it was the Minzer methamphetamine-induced psychosis that he came up with later, and it got published because he was already famous, is what you guys keep calling Minzer training. Doesn't work. It's not how he trained. Now, if you want to go look at Minzer's training for the Mr. Olympia, probably pretty good. Right? When he was actually a real bodybuilder and lifted weights, his training was pretty good. But it's nothing like all this stuff that you guys keep citing. And you got to quit changing physiology terms. Absolutely. No, muscle failure is muscle failure. Minzer he promoted extended sets. That's no longer muscle failure. All right. So, and that's the problem. You guys don't learn basic physiology before you jump into Minzer. And this is a problem. Go do basic research on how muscle fiber recruitment works, rate coding, motor units. You need to understand those things before you start discussing these things. Because otherwise it turns into meaningless conversation, you know? So in other words, quit watching TikTok videos and go do some actual reading on human physiology would be my advice. Because otherwise, what conversation do we have? Like if we don't even understand the mechanisms of muscle failure and training response, how can we have a conversation about these training methods? You know, we have to know the basics. Right? We have to know the basics before we can even go into that. If he didn't quit after being robbed, he might have won the next one. Yeah, no, definitely. Right? But he still wasn't going to beat Arnold. Like I don't feel like he was on crowd. No, Arnold still had a better physique. But without Arnold there, definitely he could have won it. But that's the problem, you know, is that because he did so well as a bodybuilder, people took all the crazy stuff seriously later. Instead of and it's scary because look at these little sound bites we get. You know, all these people are like they take the sound bites from his insanity. Keep in mind, he didn't have any science to back anything. He didn't have equipment. This is just philosophy, right? And nobody got big doing it. Like nobody really got results that he tried to train. And Dorian didn't exactly really do what Minzer pushed. Dorian had his own thing. So there was some overlap, but it's not really the same thing at all. You didn't see Dorian talking about doing one set and going 10 days without doing another. Like Dorian didn't do any of that. Dorian was still lifting weights 4 days a week. But Minzer trained 3 days a week. He hit every muscle group about every 4 days when he was training for the Olympian. And essentially, it's the cliff notes. If you look at Minzer's training and then you look at all of us who promote power building, it's the same thing, right? The ideas are the same. The way he actually trained, because I think people have to remember that. Minzer didn't work out when he wrote all that other stuff. He had stopped lifting years ago. So you have to remember that. He didn't use any of this stuff himself. He never used himself as a test subject for any of these methods. Yeah. So that's it. That's our spill on Minzer for the day. We're done. I'm going to ignore the next 3 people who ask about Minzer. Because it's going to happen in the afternoon stream also. It's so weird though. Like it's so weird that all of a sudden this is a topic again. Like in 2024, something happened and a bunch of TikTokers started discussing Minzer again. And they resurrected this from the dead, drug it back up. I don't know. I think Dorian did 4 days out of 6 and took breaks every 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah, Dorian did 4 days. 4 days a week. Right. Dorian also had a lot of injuries, you know. All that rest pause and force negatives it is going to beat you up at a certain point. It's a growth off cycle. And dudes have to understand that. So Connor, again, physiology background. Anybody gaining any muscle from forced reps or rest pause with no steroids in their system? You're not doing anything. If you're drug free, you're not gaining any muscle from that stuff. Unless you're a rank novice. once you've been training for a year, yeah, it's not going to happen. Now, if you're mid-cycle, that's a potentially different story. You're on the middle of a steroid blast, especially if you're using a new dose and a larger total anabolic response than you have ever used previously, it might. But generally speaking, no drugs, complete waste of time. All it's going to do is beat you up. There was also a situation where Mike Israel said that he was bigger than Mike Menzer, and Dorian Yates called Israel a big bag of right. I remember that. I covered that briefly, which is, again, that's not a good look for Mike. How do I get drug into these bodybuilding conversations? I'm not a bodybuilder. So for the record, people come in, and the problem is then I get bodybuilders who get married. You don't have an amazing aesthetic physique. I'm like, well, you're a weak piece of shit, so who cares? It's like, do you not know what I do? I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't care about bodybuilding at all. Basically, it's a drug show prancing around in your panties, dude. You're prancing around in your panties on a stage. All right, I'm just not interested. But get jacked, get strong, move heavy weight, get in shape, be athletic, jump, throw stuff, run, deadlift 600 pounds. That's what you should be doing. Quit worrying about panty shows. All right, let's get back over to the conversation. I think that's why watching fake natties on YouTube is such a waste of time. People in their 40s like Simeon Panda and Mike Thurston talking about how hard they train, leading to their insane results. Do they even train? Does Thurston even train hard? Yeah. Right. Unless you're Dorian Yates on his level of gear, you won't be able to train as hard. Yeah. You might be able to train at your own limits, but he was rowing like 500. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think it was 405 or sets of 8. All these kids doing this, I'm like, go put 225 on a barbell and try to actually row it on a barbell. They'll trash talk me when I come over and do 15 reps strict with 225 on a row. And I'm like, let's see you do it. I want to see you do 1 rep. I mean, because I've done 315 for cheat rows, and look how big my back is. They have no context at all for what a 400 plus pound row. Yeah, you're right. When they say talk about how hard they train, and it's like, yeah, if you're recovering from it. All right. I at least documented my 5Ks. I did my last 5K on a timer. I did a live stream while doing it, and I had an app. I had it's up on Strava, so I wore my app and my phone and had the app recording the data while I ran. What do you mean? He claimed he didn't record it. This is 2025. There's no reason you can record all of this stuff. I recorded all those 5Ks I did earlier this year. All right, Jill says, I think around 6 to 10 hard sets per week is a good amount of volume for most people. He recorded, but did he use an app? Did he track anything? Because I just use Strava and stuff, and it records all the data from the run and saves it. So my follower, I have people who follow my Strava stuff. Some of the channel members do. He was too slow to have done it in 25 minutes. 25 is pretty, for a dude over 200 pounds, not bad. I do 28. But, I'm walking around at 210. But I'm also 48, so I don't think so. Yeah, Strava. So it's super easy to document this stuff. Joel, I tend to agree 6 to 10 hard sets per week is a good amount. If you're not on any drugs, I think 6 to 10 works really good. So they're hard sets, right? Like you said, 0 to 1 rep in reserve. Yeah, that gets the job done. It will get the job done. At his size and given he doesn't do cardio endorsement, it would be insane. No, he's got to be in shape to do that. No, he's not doing that without being in shape. Again, I think people they misunderstand when they see elite runners. Because like when I did my one and I put up the 28 minutes, I had haters come in. Oh, that's really good for a beginner, man. You know, that's decent for a beginner. And it's like, stop comparing elite runners. This is like when someone deadlifts 500 pounds, us coming in and saying, that's really good for a beginner. No, stop comparing them to elite lifters. I just want to say hi. I'm watching the live stream, but I'm 30 minutes behind the live time. All good, man. All good, bro. Because ironically, I went and pulled the averages. Do you guys know what the average male run time is in a 5K in the United States? So when they compile the national average for all recorded 5Ks, what do you guys think, without going and looking it up, what's the average male run? It's 32 minutes, guys. 32 minutes is the average 5K competition, like from all of them recorded to the US for a bit. I was shocked. When I started running in lockdown, my 5K was 40 minutes and I was nearly dead at the end. I was by no means overweight. Yeah, so I mean, I did a 28 and recorded it earlier this year. That's my best so far. I'd like to eventually get down to 25. But I'm also not trying to be an elite runner. I'm an elite lifter. I don't need to be an elite runner too. I mean, maybe one day, but that's a lot. That's a lot of work. Being at a high competitive level in multiple disciplines is a rarity, Yeah, it's funny. It's not, especially when the national average was 32. People have strange ideas. I get it though. If you're 140 pounds, it's a little different, right? But being over 200 pounds, almost 50, 28 is considered actually competitive. Not like national competitive, but regional. Like you do okay in a 5K, right? But it's also not my jam. For me, running is just about being fit. Yeah. No, I did it out on the street, out in them streets. Right. 32 makes sense. Well, Connor, I mean, it includes, no, I mean, by default, if you compete, you're not Gen Pop. So that 30 looked it up of what, when they pull off of all data of 5K runs that were documented as competition, 32 minutes is the national average. That's the average man who competes. That's what the average turns out to be. So that's your baseline. Now, granted, there's a lot of people who we would count as Gen Pop, but when they're competing, you're no longer Gen Pop. Just like when you step on a powerlifting platform, you're no longer Gen Pop, you're a powerlifter. They are by definition competitive runners the moment they compete in a sanctioned foot race. Yeah, I do it barefoot. No, I don't do the shoes. My God, the number of people who get upset with my barefoot training on all my platforms. Lifting. So I get dudes who are just like, they freak out. that I lift weights barefoot, right? Same thing. I had a guy, I was doing weighted carry. So under the YouTube this morning, I woke up and someone was telling me they're really concerned that I'm destroying my feet and that I've destroyed the arches in my feet, and they could see the difference in them already. And I have to get some shoes with arch support. Like, people are crazy. Like, it's so funny how much they flip out about me being barefoot. It's quite comical. It's just a very interesting position. You know, yeah. I'm too soft to do barefoot running. I also like to have to scrub my feet in the shower. Well, yeah, of course you scrub your feet. Right? Why wouldn't you? That would make sense if you double. That would be 1 hour, 40 minutes, 10K or 6.2 miles, so around 10-minute miles. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, 10-minute miles. But no, that's just what they show. You know, I think people would be shocked too who don't follow powerlifting. I don't think people know how weak powerlifters really are either. Right? People haven't been to enough powerlifting meets. There's a lot of dudes who compete who have one good lift, and they enjoy competition. They identify as powerlifters. So you think of your it's a powerlifting is a fun run also. So I think people lose sight of that. So when I point out that my ranking puts me in the top 1% in the world, they get pissed off. And I'm like, I am a top 1% competitive powerlifter. You can not like that all that you want. But again, people don't understand what the numbers really are like. They haven't gone to a dozen. They don't understand how many grown men squat less than 4 plates on the powerlifting platform. Right? They're oblivious to this fact. In fact, it's the majority. The average male competitive powerlifter does not squat 400 pounds raw, let alone 5. But again, we see the elites highlighted online all the time. And so it changes the perspective. Hold on, I'm going to be right back. Right. It skews everything. All right, we're back. We're back. So, and I think people have to remember with that too, guys, on the powerlifting thing, right? I would say Texas has a more hardcore powerlifting scene than the UK. Like, dudes are just strong as hell. There's a lot. But I mean, even when I was in the UK, and I'm stronger now, obviously, than I was then, even over 10 years older. But I mean, think about how I placed at nationals. All right. WPC, that's the biggest untested federation. Well, they had tested division too in all of Europe. Like, they're king. So at British nationals, with 13 guys in one of the most competitive classes, I took third place with a 220 kilo squat. Right? I had the second highest squat and took third place total. There were 13 guys at nationals who signed up for my class as an invite only meet. People need a context for that. That was the 100 kilo. That's the 220 pound open. That was the open. That's the hardest class. So even in a country like the UK at nationals, 13 guys in the invite only, I had the second highest squat. And it was still just under 500 pounds. I was going to get more, but I failed it. I thought I was going to get a bigger squat and I missed it. So, well, that's the point, David. People don't understand how strong in general. They've not been in strength sports. They have because the internet has skewed strength. People have no concept because they see Larry Wheels, they see John Hack, or they see all these other people, and they don't have a context for how this scales. Now, if they go do a bunch of powerlifting meets, they start to get a better idea. Like, oh, there's a handful of really crazy strong guys, and they're outliers. Yeah, the only gym I've been to where I've seen people lifting your numbers is Relax Sports Club in London. It was The Rock and Simeon Pan. Right. But again, the internet has really watered it down for people. Really has. Where the reality, anytime I've gone to any semi-commercial type gym, people stare. They're like, I have never seen a human being lift those weights in my life. But I think they see too much trick stuff too. Like, I don't get some dude pulling sumo with straps on a whippy bar is not at my strength level if they pull 600 pounds or 650. They're not at my level because you make them pull, like you guys have seen me do 600 plus on stiff bars, conventional raw. It's rarer than people seem to grasp, and that will not carry over. So in other words, if you see a guy who sumos with bumpers and a whippy bar with straps, and he's pulling 600, he's a 500-pound deadlifter. And people don't grasp that. They don't know they don't understand the leverages. Connor, feel free to chime in, physiology background. He's 500-pound deadlifter. He's got an extra plate and some change on the bar over what he could actually do if you were to put that person into a stiff bar environment. And it's especially that sumo with the whippy bar, especially strapped up. It's such an enormous leverage difference. So if we're going to talk about levers matter, that's a perfect example of leverage, faking strength. That's a textbook example. Just off the bottom, you remove all of that, and then you strap up so you don't have to deal with the nonsense of it when that whippy bar repops. It's a big difference because that's the other problem too with that. If you can barely handle that weight, and you do it without the straps, when that bar whips, it's going to yank it out of your hands. You're not going to be able to hold on to it through the lockout. So it's an all-around big leverage cheat. But yeah, so I mean, the people, they don't train, they don't really understand. They have no concept. And that's okay, they don't have to, but it doesn't matter that kids and people don't know, because it's not my business. Like, they're not my clients. These are the people who are hiring me. So ultimately, at the end of the day, 35 and 40-year-old dudes who've been training for 15 years and have been around it, that is my client base. That's who hires me. Those are the people who pay the bills. People who have some real experience and realize the struggle. All right. That's my clients. Occasionally you guys will see one of my athletes, my younger athletes, and I think that misrepresents what I do as a coach in certain ways. They're good for advertising, but that's not my average client. I'm not saying I don't have some crazy strong average clients, but my average client's not a 26-year-old athlete. My average client is 40 years old and a recreational athlete. Right? Now, how many of those guys squat 400 plus or pull, 500 plus? A decent number of them. But I see some. I put some of the footage up every now and then. But people who actually have experience, that's going to be the target client. People who know the real struggles, right? Yeah. But my average, if I had to give you an average, my average client is 40 years old, 10, 15 years of training experience or more, usually on a replacement dose of TRT from their doctor, competes recreationally in something, right? That would represent my average client. Right? They're usually dads. Most of my clients are married with kids. Now, I get a lot of those guys to 400-pound squats, though. I get a lot of those guys to 500-pound deadlifts, so on. And we have to remember with those clients, we can't just blast gear to fix the problem anymore, right? They're 40 years old with careers and families, A grandma test is not the solution. Hence the thing with the fake natties, those conversations that we have about fake natties. Well, but that is the solution for a 28-year-old power lifter. They're stuck. Or a 28-year-old gym rat who's slowed down their gains or stuck, they're stagnant. Well, they just add more drugs. Just do a bigger blast. Done. Problem solved. Well, that's not an option for a 40-year-old guy on TRT. This is not a viable strategy. Who's got a wife and kids and a career that he can't disrupt from a shift in the mental side effects on top of that. We actually have to train and recover around these problems and not get them hurt. Right? It's just died down a little. It's a little slow in here now. Let me do some other posting. Oh man. The chat died down a little till we get some other comments. I'm gonna let it run. We're gonna run this out a long time. It's only 5:30. I can sit in here all morning while I post. And yes, I changed shirts during the break. I realized I set in a couple streams. Well, Connor, it's only 5. A lot of times I'm not even starting the stream till now. So a lot of times the stream doesn't even pick up for another 30 to 60 minutes later than we are at this moment. So it's all good. But if you guys post, if you notice when you posted, views shot up the second you posted. No, people are asleep. I mean, it's 5:30 in the morning where I am. So a lot of West Coast is a massive following of mine in the U.S. So it's 3:30 in California, 3:30 a.m. So a lot of times these streams are dead this time. You can't really engage. I'll engage in giving like a pow, right? All good, David. All good. But y'all's posts do boost it up a little. And it's all good. Yeah, the internet has definitely skewed people's concepts of everything. You know, strength, muscle, everything. But that's the thing with the fake natty stuff. I mean, believe me, guys, I am tempted very often to just simply change my diet and blast a bunch of tests and aromas in. I mean, it would cost me nothing. Not saying I'm never tempted, just because I know what it would do for business at this point. Just go back on really low carbs and blast a gram of test and control my E2. Oh no, $50 a month. That's what it would cost me. On paper, cost to my health. That's the concern. And then the cost to injury risk. So that's the things that I have to, and that's what I have to weigh out, David. So that's the thing of it, man. It's just like when we have those conversations of, do you wish you had sold out for supplements? Man, there are times when I look in the mirror and go, Jesus, why didn't you sell out, Jason? Why did you not do this? And there are other times when I can look myself in the mirror over it, right? But what I get frustrated at is not just the hate I still get from the hate campaign, but when I see people who just insist on being ripped off. That's one of the things that pissed me off the other day with Rufio. People don't know why I went off on him too a little bit. Rufio came in pimping the company that paid for the trolling in my comments. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but you kind of see where I'm like, you crossed the line a few times and then you came in literally promoting Cybation. That's the company that paid for that whole hate campaign and put money into Lane's legal fund to sue me. That's a company that essentially ruined my life. I'm not going to say I don't take that a little personal. When you have a company that spends 6 figures trying to ruin your life and created one hell of a headache for you that really has affected your life, you tend to take it personal. I get it, for them, it's just business. But by that same token, if someone's over here pimping that company who knows my story, I might take that personal. Because to me, if a company has spent that money causing my loved ones to be stalked and harassed and doxxed, anyone who's buying products from that company is funding it. Now, does that mean they're intentionally funding it? No. But they are. So, but let's discuss the health end. So the health ramifications of that. Man, my family history. That's a big deal. Right? My family history. And I have to weigh that, my age. So I have to weigh out the heart health. And I really only care about the heart health. I don't give a crap about any of the other side effects. Irrelevant to me. I care about heart attacks though. Right? So you have that one, but then what about the other big one? How strong am I relative to my age? Let's set aside internet standards. Let's come back to the real world. How strong am I for a 48-year-old? Ludicrous. Absolutely classified officially as elite. I'm a statistical outlier. See where we're about to go with this. I have 49-year-old tendons. Right. I mean, I have it, David. My last meet, it was classified as an elite total in spite of the bench fiasco and me not being able to really bench that day. My squat and deadlift alone still secured me an elite total. With a weight, I could probably come in and bench five plus reps right now for the day. Like I've benched 42 pounds heavier on camera this year, lighter body weight. In spite of that, I still got an elite total. I don't know my current deadlift max. I mean, I hit 550 for a double last week. I hit 585 on camera this year. Keep in mind, I missed 619 at my last meet. I couldn't lock it. I mean, the most I've pulled this year is 585, right? But would it have been meet legal? Yeah, it was on the meet legal bar. It was on the actual bar, exact same bar the USPA uses with calibrated plates. So, I mean, we'll call it maybe 580, 585 at the moment. If I were to spend a week or two peaking up, getting ready, let everything recover. So do the math on that. This is what I lift. You guys see me hit those numbers routinely. Right. 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 So let's come back over and discuss the other risk. So what happens if I blast a gram or more of test at this strength level with 49-year-old tendons?